as we look at these amazing heroes and that there's a link from one generation to the next. It's just not like they're picked out, oh, they did something great right then, or there was a great promise given right then. There is something about them that is connected to you and I. Abel, he brought a more acceptable offering. Basically, he had animals and he gave the first fruit. The very first lamb that was born, he gave that. Okay? Abel, he didn't. He gave what he felt when he was over, after he'd taken what he wanted, and he's upset at Abel. Abel is long dead, he said, but he still speaks to us as an example. There's some things that are very important, and God was sharing that. By faith, Abraham obeyed when God called him to go. God would give him his inheritance. And he lived it out by faith. And so did Isaac and Jacob. Not only he received the promise, but was passed on, who inherited the same promise. Sarah was able to conceive a child. A nation with so many people, like the stars in the sky, the sands in the sea, there was no way to count them. Yet Sarah started the whole thing with one. This human chain by which that God is forging and creating, he did through her to bless us and to engage others. All these people died still believing that God had promised them. They did not receive the promise. What's being said here? They saw it from a distance and they welcomed it. By faith, Isaac promised blessing to the future sons, Jacob and Esau. It was by faith that Rahab, the prostitute, saves herself and her family by welcoming the spies. How much more can we say, the scripture says, of the stories of Gideon, of Barak, of Samson, of Judith, of David, of Samuel, all the other prophets? They shut the mouths of lions. They quenched the flames of fire. They escaped death by the edge of the sword. Their weaknesses were turned to strengths. They became strong in battle. They put whole armies to flight. Women received their loved ones back from death, but others were tortured, refusing to turn from God in order to be set free. They placed their hope in a better life after resurrection. Some were jeered. Their backs were opened up with whips. Others were chained in prison. Some died by stoning. Some sawn in half. Others killed with the sword. Some went about wearing skins of sheep and goats, destitute and oppressed and mistreated. They were too good for this world, wandering over the deserts and the mountains, hiding in caves and holes in the ground. Passages like this make it clear to us that their promise was not completed. It wasn't because of a deficiency, something they lacked. It was part of the story, because this verse summarizes everything. Hebrews 11:39. All these people earned a good reputation because of their faith, yet none of them received all. None received all God had promised. God had something better in mind for us, so they would not reach perfection, completeness, without us. Look around. Without us. God says, I'm starting something with one that will carry on and forge a chain of strength and promise that will be passed on from one to the other. To complete, to finish, to mature, to reach its intended goal. God can't finish what the earlier saints began. He can't mature the promise that he wants to bring about until we grab the baton that has been passed from one generation to the next. Until we do that. God gave individual promises, but he didn't give a timeline. God gives promises to individual about what you'll do, knowing it may be your children, your grandchildren. It may be your great-great-grandchildren. It may be your spiritual children and family that you speak to. So my question here, I want to pause and begin to think about, what are you and I to finish for another? Some person in past decades that God promised to start. What are we to finish, to complete? Generations are far more concerned and connected than we realize. To God, He wants to work through the descendants. He wants to work through this. Not just now, not just in this moment. He works in the past to come to this moment to create our future. In a prayer meeting somewhere else, someone used this word, and I really was struck by it. Synergy of the ages. Synergy. You know, synergy is this multiplication of power. You have combined effort. There's greater power when you work together. We know math. 1 + 1 = what? 2, right? All right, that's very simple. But did you know that somebody can press or lift 100 pounds? That's their max. They can't do any more. And another person who lifts 100 pounds, and that's their max, that's all they can do, that when the two of them try to lift something together, they can lift 300 pounds. Not 200, 300. There's a synergy. There's something that happens in them joining together that causes them combine together to do more. And this is spiritual. It's talked about that. Ephesians 6, honor your parents and increases the years of your life. Malachi 4:6, calling and gifting are multiplied as we work together with the generations. 2 Kings 2:9, God's plan was always for the present generation to benefit from what the prior generation happened. Elijah and Elisha, what happened? Elijah, the older prophet, stopped and says, what do you want from me? And the other one says, I want a double portion. I want to start where you have started, continue, and even do more. A double portion. This generational thing it works just in natural life. They did a study between Max Jukes and Jonathan Edwards. Max Jukes married an ungodly woman, and they had their descendants. 310 of their descendants died paupers, destitute. 150 died criminals. 7 died as murderers. 100 as drunkards. And more than half of all the women were involved in prostitution. Jonathan Edwards, who lived at the same time, who married a godly woman, they had 1,394 descendants. 13 became college presidents, 65 college professors, 3 United States senators, 30 judges, 100 lawyers, 60 physicians, 75 Army and Navy officers, 100 preachers and missionaries, 60 authors of prominence, 1 a vice president of the United States, 80 became public officials, and 295 college graduates, of which they were governors of states and ministers of foreign countries. Success, favor, blessing are multiplied through the generations. We've talked about that. But being ignorant of what the generations provide and their promises and what they were standing on, that affects us. It affects the story God is trying to write. You and I know, turn to somebody, tap their shoulder, we can pray for them. We can enter into agreement in prayer for them. But what we're ignorant of, what we fail to understand, is you can come in agreement with the promises of the prayers of those who have gone before us. Hello, I hope we've added value to your life today. Would you take a moment to subscribe so that you don't miss any live streams? And then the other thing I want to let you know is share this with a friend. And just remember, every Sunday, you can be with us live. Thanks for sharing this moment.